most important students and professors. Let me say, first of all, it's always a pleasure to come back to BHU. And I was telling Professor Patra, I had myself a bit of a personal association. Students would be interested to know. My father-in-law actually studied here about 8 years ago when it was not IIT, but when it was a previous institution as an engineering college. And I have many good friends of my generation who studied here as well. So there's a lot which was familiar to me. I'd seen pictures of a lot of the buildings which the Vice Chancellor was kind enough to take us when we were on a tour. Now, the particular occasion which has brought us here, as you all know, is the Kashi Tamil Sangamam. And in many ways, to do that in a university and that too in the company of students studying technology, I think is very appropriate. Because what many of you would have heard Prime Minister Modi say again and again, that nation building requires respect for both tradition and technology. And the two are not opposing concepts. Technology is, in many ways, when we say technology, we are looking at the way forward. But tradition is what we draw from as we chart that way forward. In many ways, it defines us, it defines our attitudes, it defines our thinking, it defines our personality as well. And I would, there would be a completely different, I think, to talk about the Indian knowledge system is a subject into itself. But I would only say, even in approaching technology, we are shaped very much by traditions. And part of the reason, when you look at it, and I ask the ambassadors particularly to reflect on it, see how quickly the Indian public has embraced digital technology. There are people who barely learn to read or write, but they had no hesitation in using their smartphones. And surely that kind of aptitude, that kind, has something to do with our tradition and culture. Just as, in fact, our engagement with the world, which is the subject of this session, that because India, in its history, in its tradition, has always been open to the world. Open to the world means people came here, we went out there were interactions, there were hybrids, there were outcomes which came out of it. The footprints of India in the world are not new, and nor are the influences of the world on India. It's been a really, I would say, an unusually interactive history between India and the world. And after obviously a somewhat difficult period in our history, today we are trying to reclaim that, to try to get back to a very positive, productive relationship with the world. So I will just share with you what I did in the last 2 weeks, just to give you a sense of what is the engagement with the world we have today. Roughly about, that's on the 10th of this month, I accompanied the Prime Minister as he went out to Paris to co-chair the AI Action Summit. He and President Macron were the conveners of this meeting, which was probably, today one of the most important AI policy platforms in the world. Of course, from there, Prime Minister went to Washington for his first meeting with President Trump in President Trump's second term. I thereafter went back to Europe to a very important conference, annual conference there called the Munich Security Conference, which was really discussing the key issues, not just of security, of larger directions which the world was going. Then I went on to Oman to meet foreign ministers and policymakers of the Indian Ocean region. A very large number of my colleagues were there. I came back to India briefly, and then I went to South Africa for the G20 meeting, where the focus really was again on how can the global leadership help the global south. Now I mentioned this to you because if you look at the range of these interactions, whether it's G20, whether it's the US, whether it's a technology summit, whether it's an Indian Ocean gathering, this really tells you today what is the breadth and intensity and importance of India's engagement with the world. So we are today, after all, the 5th largest economy. We will be higher up the ladder soon. But what that does mean is that the world has expectations of us. And those expectations have to be delivered by all of you, especially those sitting in the second half of the lid, the upper part of the room. The world has more expectations of us, but we also have greater responsibilities for the world. There cannot be situations or crises where we take a very self-centered approach. So it could be the COVID pandemic, it could be issues of conflict in different parts of the world, it could be disruptions to maritime shipping, it could be the demand in the world for talent. Now, there are increasingly going to be less and less issues on which we sit out. We need, therefore, to prepare ourselves as a country. I tell young people that please don't think foreign policy is something which these people and people like me do. We do. Foreign policy matters to you. It comes to your homes. Every choice which you make, whether the COVID, after all, taught us that lesson. When you, every day in your life, in some form or the other, Director IIT Professor Patra mentioned being able to travel securely. That foreign policy makes a difference. If today, the price of food or the price of petrol is reasonable, foreign policy has made a difference. If your borders are secure, or if your products, the quality of products, the choices you have are more, that too is an outcome of foreign policy. So do get ready, do prepare yourself for a world of greater globalization, a world of greater technology. After all, you are in the IIT. And for a world where you will hold your own, and that you will do by knowing who you are, by honoring and respecting your traditions, by developing your own collective persona. So these were some of the thoughts. I am very pleased today that I have a number of ambassadors who are joining me on this trip. I thought it would be nice for them to see parts of India outside Delhi. They do see it, but not all of them naturally and regularly come to Kashi. So, and not all of them would necessarily go to a university. So I think their presence here is also, to me, added value for this event. If there are things you wish to ask them, please feel free. I'm sure that they will be happy to share their knowledge and experience as well. So perhaps I could end on this note and we could have the question and answer session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jaishankar. Perhaps in you it's not an exaggeration if I say we have the combination of a bureaucrat as well as a minister, and that's well reflected with the elan and panache with which you deal the international interviews, and not to say there are many fans following for such kind of replies that we have had. Now, as the minister has laid ground for the interaction, we have collated the questions from our students. So I will be requesting those who have the mic, as and when I say the name, please stand in your place and the mic will be reaching you. Manav Mehta from the 4th year Electrical Engineering. I request the mic bearers to be spread in the hall so that we don't waste time in just moving the mic. Yes, Manav Mehta.
Respected MEA, so the idea of Vishwabandhu is deeply rooted in our culture, but how do we promote this idea globally? Like, is it through media and cinematography, or are there any other ways?
I think you have to do all of it. You have to promote it through media, through diplomacy. But most of all, you have to act like a Vishwabandhu. Vishwabandhu meaning friend of the world, friend or partner to the world. And when I was giving you my catalogue of activities for the last few days, yesterday night I addressed a conference of medical, you can say tourism, or medical industry, of people who come to India for heal in India, or people who are benefited by Indian medical or pharmaceutical or institutional support. I was myself, struck by how active we have been across the world in terms of, support in the health sector. When I look at disaster situations, rescuing people, or going for earthquakes or that kind of disasters, or I look at contributions we make, or sometimes even just standing up for other people. We had the president of the AU speak up at the G20. Now, the fact was, Africa had been continuously promised a seat in G20, but it didn't really get done till the G20 came to India, because nobody was willing to make a fight of it. So I think, so everybody will say we are a friend of the world. You have to act like a friend of the world. And the world has to believe you are a friend based on what you do. So I regard it in a way as a direction, as an outlook, but it's also a goal. You have to keep challenging yourself that, are there things I can do for the world which will make it a better place?
Thank you.
Thank you. So it's not just technology, but even our foreign policies are governed by the tradition, because we say manasyekam, vachasyekam, karmanyekam mahatmanah. So it's not mere lip service, but the unity in thought, word and action, that what makes an impact. Ms. Muskan Priyakant Rawat, she hails from the 5th year Industrial Chemistry.
Respected MEA, my question is, what opportunities are being created for the youth so that they can learn about the cultures and ideas, helping them to develop a sense of brotherhood for the future?
Well, the Kashi Tamil Sangamam itself is an example. I think today there's much greater awareness among young people about our traditions. And I've lived a very large part of my life abroad. And I've seen many societies which have not been able to pass that down to the younger generation. That the younger people are disconnected from the roots in many ways. It's not something I would like to see in my own country. But here's the interesting bit. I think part of the reason we've been able to do it is actually because we are passing traditions on through technology. That many of you would know things, do things, experience things because you have access to information and you have the ability to actually act on it in a way in which somebody 20 years older than you did not have. So there's also, I think it's important for the leadership to inculcate that sense, not just of awareness, also of pride. That, our way of doing things. I'm not saying to the exclusion of others, but at least, let us say, our way of medicine, our way of healing, our way of wellness, our way of lifestyle, our way of resolving disputes. I think it's important that we express that confidently if we are to make sure that younger people believe in it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Aryan Gupta, 3rd year BTech Metallurgy. Wherever you are, please stand.
Hello, sir. My question is that AI is the future, we all know. and currently it lacks the emotional quotient. So as India offers an unparalleled wealth of data across languages, cultures and ethnicity and all socio and economic backgrounds, so what steps government should take to harness this diversity and help countries in the development of AI, uplifting the emotional quotient?
I would urge you to look or read what Prime Minister said at that AI summit in Paris, because one of the basic points he made is how to deal with the cultural bias in AI, which is partly what you are talking about. In that sense, India would be a very crucial player. Not just because of our technology capability, but also because of our scale. That scale and diversity. That if you had the scale, but it was a more uniform scale, I think its value to AI would be less. What we bring to AI is 1, the talent, 2, the scale, and 3, the diversity. And I think those 3 combined together would actually deal with this. If, by the way, any of you has anything to ask any of the ambassadors, please feel free on your behalf.
Yes, so the questions can be even addressed to the various ambassadors who are amidst us. So please make use of that opportunity as well. Mr. Raja Bhavesh.
Respected sir, what lessons can the world learn from India in developing strong international relationships?
I don't think it's a matter of world learning lessons. I think we are an old civilization society. There are habits and attitudes and practices that we bring to bear, and many others do as well. I would rephrase what you are saying, which is, I think we need to contribute more confidently, more strongly. And if we do that, the value of that contribution would be recognized. But equally, I think we need to be sensitive and aware of the contribution of others. That, it's just as we feel that sometimes not enough justice is done to our viewpoint. Remember, there would be others who would be having a similar feeling as well. So a lot of what we are trying to do is not just change, one part of it is to change the power balance in the world. I think the more difficult is to change attitudes so that it's a much more consultative and you can say a democratic world, much more collaborative world, in which obviously we would like to do our fair share and more.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ritik Mittal, who comes from the mining engineering, 4th year.
Hello, sir. My question is, as we embrace Vishwa Bandhu, how can we ensure global engagement? And what key parameters should guide this? And which topics should India prioritize?
First of all, the world is a very integrated place. It's not like you do politics, economics, energy, technology separately. It comes often seamlessly and as a package. So it's very hard to necessarily pick. I mean, obviously there are some countries have greater priorities. But again, think back today. If we are, the 5th and, 4th, 3rd largest economy in the world, I put it to you the other way around. Which part would you not engage the world? Which domain is it which is not globalized anymore, where you can feel that I can handle it only at home? I would suggest to you none. That every part today of what we do, every dimension, every facet of our activities somewhere has some kind of global external dimension. Look again, the key part, the whole concept of Vishwa Bandhu, it is not, it's not rocket science. The whole idea is how can a country maximize its friends and minimize its problems. It doesn't happen by itself. It just doesn't also happen only by being nice. It will happen if you are prepared to do more. If people remember you as standing up at that moment of a problem or a crisis. Or if you say, okay, I'm sort of trying to find a way out of a difficult situation. So Vishwa Bandhu is not a passive concept. It requires actually to be credible. You can have no enemies and be irrelevant. If you are relevant, there will be, of course there will be some problems accompanying it. But how do you optimize it? How do you make your presence felt, but in the best possible way, with the least possible problems? I mean, that is really what a common sense, which happens to be a traditional way of looking at the world.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Sanjana Garai. She comes from the Mathematics and Computing, third year.
A very good afternoon, sir. It's an honor to win this opportunity. My question is, strategic partnerships are often perceived as alignments rather than friendships. How can India, while upholding Vishwa Bandhu, navigate geopolitical sensitivities in technology and promote cooperation without compromising strategic interests, given global superpowers' competitive stance?
You see, in our case, there are two sides to it. One is our history and one is our size. I think as a country which for many years was ruled by a foreign power, there's a great deal of sensitivity about independence. That we don't want to get into a situation where you are again ever tied to another foreign power. You don't want them to get too much influence or too much of a say on our decision making and choices. So this very strong streak of independence, I think, is a consistent strain. I don't think it's somewhere in our people, it's in our public discourse. It's not a political position of a particular government or a party. I think everybody shares it in a way. The second is, while we want to be independent, we also in different ways want to get our work done. But remember, we are also a big country, and big countries typically have so many interests that they cannot necessarily be tied down to some other country on all issues. So if you have, this large number of countries in the world, with every country there will be touch points. There will be things you agree with, but there will be things you agree with less. So by its nature of our size, and the nature of our mindset, we will always keep it as flexible, as easy, as optional as possible. I mean, that's, to me, a logical outlook from both our history and our scale. And interestingly, this is apparently going to be the future of the world as well. In the last few months, I think if you look at the global conversation, it has become very much a conversation of national interest. It has become, I am in it for my country. Now, I think in many ways, what for us had been, for our own reasons, a certain way of thinking, I think with many other countries in the world who did not follow that way of thinking, I think they seem to be poised for a change as well.
Thank you very much, sir. Since I have the privilege of standing between you and the minister, I'll break the ice, and I have some question for the ambassadors who are sitting here, because you have shared concept of decolonization, because we have several ambassadors, high commissioners from different countries in Africa, and we morning discussed about the spirit of decolonization, which is we are currently facing. Perhaps in your individual countries you have already faced it, and it's going on. I, as an Indian,